Okay, so we've set up our MCUs to communicate through this USB connector to a program called PuTTY that we have. Now, in this program, I want to talk a little more about some general useful features. First of all, if we're going to be programming to the PIC, we should always make sure that we include this function right here, this library, XC library. It knows about all the MCU features and some special commands that are not C commands for controlling those features. So always make sure you have that. A second thing is that we should always have this configuration bits.h file. It's just a, find that, configuration bits. It's just the setup that we want for the configuration bits. Okay? And you can always change the configuration bits by coming up and looking at this right here, set configuration bits. You can make all the changes here, right? And when you're finished, you can generate the code to an output. And that's what I've done. That's my configuration.bits. And that saves me from getting a whole bunch of warning messages about this using default settings for the configuration. And there are certain settings that we just find useful, okay? And that we'll talk about more later. So we don't want this anymore. Let's go back to our main. So just make sure when you're programming that you have this line and this line. And as well, if you want to be using printf, you need those two lines of code, those two libraries as well. Okay, so this program right here just prints hello world and waits. So I'm going to call up my window. I've been playing with it a bit, so let's reset it. Okay. And program and load. You can see all the messages about it being successful. And over here in the corner, it's connected and it's programming. And one of the things that you will notice is I've got hello world several times. Let me do it again, as a matter of fact. All right. And it's kind of like the memory is burping into the usert command. And that's a little inconvenient for us. Certainly, if we're trying to set up any sort of nice display, we don't want to look like we're endlessly repeating ourselves. So there's a piece of code I want to use. Now that piece of code I have actually set up in a source file right here. So we're going to add an existing item, and it's called putty.c, and it has a header file, putty.h. And if we're using this guy, we have to include lines right here. So, putty.h. And putty.h is available in our Moodle site. It's functions that we created for you. And in this project, if we look at putty.c, there's this little program with a print statement. And this print statement sends messages to PuTTY, and PuTTY interprets those as commands to clear the screen. So if I call PuTTY up here, they essentially do something like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call that function before I run my program. So let's go back to main. And before I print anything out, I just want to make sure I clear the screen, because that'll look nicer when we do the job. And Both successful. Okay, so you can see, oh, right? So you saw the burping, right? And now it clears the screen and there's only one here. I want to do that again. Okay. So it won't be so obnoxious this time. So that's great. That's a useful thing for us. The fact that we can print just what we want and that there's no memory issues. Okay. The next thing we want to talk about is sort of delaying this print. Typically when you have a little window like this, when you want it to start, you usually hit a key, often the enter key, before anything prints out. And there's a command that we can use to make that happen. It's called while not data ready use start. And this just waits until a key is pressed. That's not while. Okay. So data ready use start is an XCH program that says, has anybody tapped the keyboard? And so this is saying, wait until somebody hits the keyboard, right? So this says, anything been hit? Any key been hit? So not, it's not it, and then we're waiting. So let's build that and see what we get now. So here we are, it's programming. It'll clear that screen. And now it's just waiting. So I'm going to come and just enter. And now it prints it. That's a nice little feature of a lot of these little DOS window programs that you might be writing. Okay. What else could we do? Well, most specifically, often instead of just waiting for any key, you could use you could wait for a specific key. And in our projects, in configure usart.c, which is right here, there's this little function here, wait for enter. Enter is the carriage return, or the enter key. And as long as it's, you'll see this data ready usart, it waits, and it reads the key, and if it's not the key we want, then it just keeps running. The enter key is number 13 on your board. So we're going to use this function instead of what I had written before. Another big difference. But one I like. So CR stands for carriage return. It's the enter key. Okay. So I'm going to load this up. Put up my little putty window. And you can see it sitting there. I could have printed out a message, hit enter to start, but here you can see me hitting any other key. Now I hit enter. Perfect. Hello world. Except there's all that crap on top of it. So what I'd probably like to do is, after the wait for enter, I'd like to clear the screen again. Okay, so now it's waiting for an enter. And when I do hit enter, that extraneous text has been deleted, and I just have my hello world. By the way, I should point out that you can change the color of your screen, change the settings. If you go to Appearance, Colors, I'm using the system colors. If I change them, it's white on black. But for a lot of people, this black on white is nice. And Appearance, you can change the font if you need to make it bigger or smaller. Okay. That's it for now. Thank you.